She just wanted to call an Uber? But ended up in the arms of the most feared rich CEO in Atlanta. I had 35 minutes to get to the biggest meeting of my life. The wrong car pulled up. The doors locked. And the man in that underground garage, cold, powerful, impossible, gave me a choice that would change everything: trust him or lose it all. The black sedan pulled up exactly when it wasn't supposed to. Welcome back to CJ Stories, where we bring you emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul. If you're just joining us for the first time, you're welcome to this wonderful big family. We're so glad to have you here. Please make sure to watch till the end, and if today's story moves you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and share this video with your family and loved ones. Now, let's dive into today's story. Naomi Stevens stood on the rain-slicked sidewalk outside the St. Regis, Atlanta, her phone screen glowing with a very different car description. Gray Honda Civic. License plate GHX 4429. Driver named Marcus. This was a black Mercedes S-Class. Tinted windows. No license plate visible from her angle. She glanced at her phone again. The little car icon on her app was still 4 minutes away. "Ma'am?" The driver's window descended smoothly. Professional. Courteous. "Miss Stevens." Her event portfolio slipped an inch in her wet hands. How did he know her name? I think there's been a mistake. I'm waiting for. Please. The driver stepped out, umbrella already open. Expensive suit. The kind of precision that came with serious money. Mr. Hutchinson is running behind schedule. The rain's getting worse. Naomi's heel caught in a sidewalk grate as she stepped back. The driver reached to steady her, but she'd already recovered. Barely. "I don't know any Mr. Hutchinson." The car service. His tone suggested this was obvious. "You requested a ride to Ponce City Market?" She had. 40 minutes ago. But through a budget app that definitely didn't send Mercedes sedans. Her phone buzzed. The gray Honda had canceled. Driver sick. Refund processing. The rain intensified. Her silk blouse, the nice one she'd saved for this meeting, was already soaked through. The portfolio protecting her presentation boards wasn't waterproof. Just water-resistant. There was a difference, and she was about to discover it. "Ma'am, please. We really should." Fine. She slid into the back seat before she could second-guess it. Warm leather. That new car smell that actually meant expensive car smell. A bottle of Fiji water in the cup holder with condensation still on it. The door closed with the kind of solid sound that said German engineering. She should have asked more questions. Should have verified. Should have done a lot of things. But the presentation meeting started in 35 minutes, and Atlanta traffic didn't care about should have. The driver pulled into traffic with the smooth competence of someone who did this professionally. Naomi tried to relax. Tried to run through her pitch one more time. Tried not to think about her bank account, which had exactly $412 until Friday. If she landed this corporate event contract, that number would change. Significantly. If she didn't, her business, Stevens & Company. Event design, would quietly fold before its third birthday. And she'd spent too many sleepless nights building it to let that happen without a fight. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number * wrong car. "That's my ride." Her stomach dropped. She looked up at the driver. "Excuse me? I think there's been a..." The privacy screen was up. Soundproof, apparently, because he didn't react. She tried the door handle. Locked. Child safety locks, probably. Her phone buzzed rapid fire. Unknown number * I'm serious. Tell the driver to turn around. Unknown number * now. Unknown number * do you have any idea who you're dealing with? Naomi's mouth went dry. She knocked on the privacy screen. Nothing. She knocked harder. The car turned onto Peachtree Street. Wrong direction. Completely wrong direction. Her meeting was in 32 minutes. She dialed 911 but didn't press call yet. Tried the door handle again. Still locked. Another text. Unknown number * fine. You want to play games? I'll have the police waiting at whatever destination you think you're going to. This was bad. This was spectacularly bad. The car slowed. Stopped. Underground parking garage. Sleek. Private. The kind of place that required keycard access. The driver opened her door. "Miss Stevens, if you'll just. I need to leave. Right now." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "This is a mistake. I'm not who you think I am." "Naomi Stevens? Event planner?" She froze. "You have a presentation meeting at Ponce City Market in 30 minutes. Mr. Hutchinson's assistant called to upgrade your transportation. Courtesy of..." "I didn't ask for an upgrade." "Nevertheless." He gestured toward a private elevator. "Mr. Hutchinson would like a word before you leave." Every instinct screamed run. But her presentation boards were still in the trunk. And whoever this Mr. Hutchinson was, he apparently knew her schedule, her name, her business. The elevator doors opened. A man stepped out, and the air pressure in the garage seemed to change. Samuel Hutchinson was 37 years old, though he carried himself with the kind of authority that made age irrelevant. Tall, sharp-featured. The kind of good-looking that came with excellent genetics and better tailoring. Dark hair, gray eyes that missed nothing. And currently, those eyes were fixed on Naomi with an expression somewhere between surprise and something else she couldn't quite identify. "You're not Victoria Chen." His voice matched everything else about him. Precise. Controlled. Expensively educated. "No." Naomi's grip tightened on her portfolio. "I'm Naomi Stephens. And I think your driver picked up the wrong person." Something flickered across his face. He pulled out his phone. Typed something. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "My assistant," he said slowly, "appears to have sent the car to the wrong St. Regis entrance." "There's more than one entrance?" "Apparently." He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. His expression shifted. "You're soaking wet." She was. Her blouse was plastered to her skin. Her hair, which she'd spent 40 minutes perfecting, hung in damp curls. Her heels squelched. "It's raining," she said unnecessarily. "James." He didn't raise his voice, but the driver snapped to attention. "How long has she been wet?" "Sir, I assumed." "How long?" "Since I picked her up, sir." "Approximately 8 minutes." Samuel's eyes closed briefly. When they opened, they'd gone cold. "You put a soaking wet woman in my car and didn't offer her a coat? Didn't turn up the heat?" "Didn't," he stopped himself. "We'll discuss this later." He turned back to Naomi. "I apologize. This is unacceptable. Please, come upstairs. I'll have my assistant arrange proper transportation for your meeting, and I need to go. Now." She checked her phone. 28 minutes. "I appreciate whatever this was, but I really need to." Ponce City Market. Corporate event pitch for Castellan Industries. He said it like he was reading her calendar. $30,000 contract if you land it. Potentially more if they like your work. She stared at him. "You're wondering how I know that?" It wasn't a question. Thomas Castellan is a business associate. His assistant mentioned they were reviewing event planners today. "I pay attention to details." That's. She couldn't decide between flattering and creepy. "A lot of information." "I'm good at acquiring information." He checked his watch. Patek Philippe. Probably cost more than her car. "You have 27 minutes. Atlanta traffic being what it is, you won't make it." Her heart sank. He was right. However, Samuel continued, "I can make a phone call. Have the meeting pushed back an hour. Give you time to dry off, compose yourself, deliver your presentation properly." "Why would you do that?" "Because my driver inconvenienced you. Because I don't like inefficiency. Because," he stopped. Started again. "Does it matter?" "It should. It definitely should." But her entire business was riding on this meeting. "One phone call," she said carefully, "and they'll just reschedule? For me?" "Yes." The certainty in that single word told her everything she needed to know about Samuel Hutchinson's world. When he made calls, people rescheduled. She should say no. Should walk away. Should maintain her independence and figure this out herself. But her presentation boards were water damaged. Her blouse was see-through. And her business was 4 weeks from bankruptcy. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Thank you." Samuel pulled out his phone. Dialed. "Thomas. Samuel Hutchinson. I need a favor." And just like that, Naomi Stevens' carefully controlled life collided with a man who would change everything. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. The penthouse office looked like it had been designed by someone who understood that power didn't need to announce itself. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Atlanta. Midtown skyline stretched out like a kingdom Samuel Hutchinson probably owned half of. The furniture was minimal. Expensive. Everything in shades of gray and black except for a single piece of art, abstract, bold, the only splash of color in the entire space. Naomi stood dripping on marble floors worth more than her entire apartment. "Thomas will see you at 2 o'clock instead of noon." Samuel pocketed his phone. "That gives you 90 minutes. Just like that?" "Just like that." She wanted to ask what he'd offered in exchange. What favor he'd called in. What this would cost. But a woman appeared in the doorway before she could. 60-something, silver hair in a neat bun, carrying towels and what looked like a garment bag. "Miss Stevens." Her voice was warm. Professional. "I'm Patricia, Mr. Hutchinson's executive assistant." Let's get you dried off. I don't need. Your blouse is ruined, Patricia said gently. And your presentation boards are water damaged. We'll need to address both if you want this meeting to go well. Naomi looked down. Her carefully prepared boards were bleeding ink. 3 weeks of work dissolving in real time. Something must have shown on her face because Samuel's expression shifted. Patricia, have design send someone up. Immediately. He turned to Naomi. Do you have digital copies? On my laptop. Good. We'll have them reprinted. Properly mounted. Professional quality. I can't afford. You're not paying for it. He said it like the idea was absurd. This is my assistant's mistake. I'm correcting it. Pride warred with practicality. Practicality won, but barely. Thank you. Patricia guided her toward a private bathroom that was larger than Naomi's bedroom. Heated floors. Rainfall shower. Towels so soft they felt illegal. The clothes should fit, Patricia said, hanging the garment bag on a hook. Mr. Hutchinson had me pull options from the boutique downstairs. If nothing works, I can get more. Naomi unzipped the bag. Designer labels she recognized from magazines. A silk blouse in deep emerald. Tailored black pants. Even shoes, heels in her exact size. How did he know my size? Patricia's smile was knowing. Mr. Hutchinson is very observant. That should have been creepy. Somehow, it wasn't. Just unsettling in a different way. 20 minutes later, Naomi emerged transformed. The emerald blouse fit perfectly. The pants made her legs look longer. The heels were comfortable, actually comfortable, which seemed like witchcraft. Samuel looked up from his desk. Stopped mid-sentence in whatever phone call he was on. His eyes tracked over her slowly. Once. Then away, but not before she caught something flicker in his expression. I'll call you back. He ended the call. Stood. Better. Thank you for the clothes. I'll return them after. They're yours. Mr. Hutchinson. Samuel. He moved around the desk. Closer. Not invading her space but near enough that she caught his scent. Something subtle. Expensive. And they're yours. Non négociable. She should argue. Should maintain boundaries. But God, the blouse felt amazing. Your presentation boards. He gestured to the conference table where perfect replicas of her designs now sat. Professional mounting. Color-corrected printing. Better than her originals. Naomi walked over slowly. Picked one up. The weight was right. The images crisp. They'd even corrected a small color balance issue she'd noticed but hadn't had time to fix. How? I have an excellent design team. Samuel stood across the table from her. Walk me through it. What? Your pitch. Practice on me. You don't need to. Consider it payment for the inconvenience. His eyes met hers. And I'm curious what kind of event planner commands a $30,000 contract. There was a challenge in his voice. Not mockery. Something else. Like he was genuinely interested in whether she could deliver. Naomi straightened her shoulders. Set down her coffee. Became the version of herself that had built a business from nothing. Castellan Industries is celebrating their 50th anniversary, she began. They want sophisticated. Memorable. Something that honors their history while positioning them for the future. Samuel leaned against the table. Arms crossed. Listening. Most event planners will give them the standard corporate package. Ballroom. Dinner. Speeches. Forgettable. She pulled out her first board. I'm proposing a journey. She walked him through it. The venue, a transformed industrial space in West Midtown. The timeline, starting at 6 p.m. with their founding story projected on exposed brick, moving through decades with different rooms representing different eras. The finale, a rooftop reveal showcasing Atlanta's skyline with their new brand identity. Samuel didn't interrupt. Didn't check his phone. Just watched her with those sharp gray eyes that seemed to calculate everything. When she finished, silence stretched between them. You're undercharging, he said finally. What? 30,000 for that scope of work? You should be asking for 60. Minimum. Naomi's mouth opened. Closed. The budget is flexible for the right proposal. Which this is. He straightened. Thomas Castellan is old-fashioned. He'll try to negotiate you down. Don't let him. I need this contract. I know. That's why I'm telling you not to undervalue your work. Samuel moved closer. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Desperate doesn't look good in negotiations. Confident does. Easy to say when you're she stopped herself. Billionaire? His mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. I wasn't always. And the fastest way to stay poor is to accept less than you're worth. The words hit harder than they should have. Why are you helping me? The question came out quieter than she intended. You don't know me. This wasn't even your mistake, your driver picked up the wrong person. You don't owe me anything. Samuel was quiet for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Something almost vulnerable before he locked it down. Maybe I'm tired of people in my life who only want something from me. He said it lightly, but there was weight underneath. You didn't know who I was. Didn't ask for anything. Just wanted to get to your meeting. I still don't know who you are. Not really. Samuel Hutchinson. 37. Founded Hutchinson Capital 6 years ago. We do private equity, venture capital, some real estate development. He rattled it off like a resume. Billionaire as of 2 years ago. Unmarried. No kids. Allergic to inefficiency and small talk. That's what you do. Not who you are. The observation seemed to catch him off guard. He studied her face like he was seeing something unexpected. Who are you, Naomi Stevens? The way he said her name did something to her pulse. 34. Event planner trying to keep her business alive. Unmarried. No kids. Allergic to asking for help and, she stopped. Started again. And apparently really bad at picking the right Uber. This time he did smile. Small. Real. It transformed his entire face. Best mistake my assistant ever made. The air between them shifted. Charged. Naomi became acutely aware of how close he was standing. How his eyes had gone darker. How her breathing had changed. Her phone alarm shattered the moment. 1 hour until the meeting. I should go, she said. Practice more. Get my head in the game. James will drive you. Properly this time. Samuel stepped back, but his eyes stayed on her. And Naomi? Yes? Don't settle for 30,000. She nodded. Started toward the door. Stopped. Samuel? Yes? Thank you. Really. This was? She searched for words. More than I expected from a wrong Uber. Have dinner with me. The words came out fast. Like he'd surprised himself. Naomi turned slowly. What? Tonight. After your meeting. Dinner. He looked almost uncertain. Almost. Unless you'd rather not. She should say no. Should keep this professional. Should maintain boundaries with a man who clearly operated in a completely different stratosphere. Yes, she heard herself say instead. Samuel's expression shifted. Relief. Pleasure. Something that looked almost like hope. I'll text you the details. You don't have my number. He pulled out his phone. Showed her the screen. Her contact information. Complete. Patricia is very thorough, he said. That's one word for it. Is 8 o'clock too late? It's perfect. She left before she could second-guess herself. Before she could analyze what she'd just agreed to. Before she could think too hard about the way Samuel Hutchinson looked at her like she was something rare. The elevator doors closed. And Naomi realized she'd just agreed to dinner with a billionaire. A billionaire who made her forget to be afraid. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. The meeting with Thomas Castellan went better than Naomi had dreamed. He loved the concept. Loved the journey approach. Loved everything. Right up until he saw the revised number she'd written down. $65,000. She'd added 5 to Samuel's suggestion. Partly because the scope justified it. Partly because something in his words, don't accept less than you're worth, had burrowed under her skin. Thomas Castellan sat back in his chair, silver eyebrows raised. His assistant leaned over, whispered something Naomi couldn't hear. Thomas's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Naomi kept her spine straight. Her hands steady on the presentation boards. The emerald blouse helped. So did knowing Samuel believed in the number. Thomas tapped his pen against the conference table. 3 times. Precise. Deliberate. Finally, he spoke. The number he offered back was lower. Considerably lower. His tone suggested it wasn't negotiable. Every instinct screamed take it. 55,000 would save her business. Would give her breathing room for 6 months. Would change everything. But Samuel's voice echoed in her head. Desperate doesn't look good in negotiations. Naomi countered. Added something she'd invented on the spot, custom gift experiences for their top 50 clients. Personalized, hand-delivered, designed to reinforce their new brand identity. Something that extended the event's impact for weeks afterward. Thomas blinked. His assistant whispered again, longer this time. Thomas's fingers drummed the table. Then he nodded. Slowly. Named a number that met her exactly where she needed. $62,000. Contract drafted by end of week. They shook hands. Naomi made it to the parking garage before her legs started shaking. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. $62,000. Her business was saved. She pulled out her phone to text her sister Maya, then stopped. Stared at the other name in her recent messages. Samuel Hutchinson. He'd sent the restaurant address 20 minutes ago. Bacchanalia. One of Atlanta's finest. Reservations that normally required weeks of advance notice. She should feel excited. Should feel grateful. Instead, something uncomfortable twisted in her stomach. He'd helped her. Given her clothes, reprinted her materials, pushed back her meeting, offered advice that had just earned her $60,000. What did he expect in return? Her phone rang. Unknown number. A woman's voice came through. Clipped. Professional. Cold. She introduced herself as Victoria Chen, and explained that she believed there had been a car mix-up that morning. Naomi's stomach dropped. She started to explain, the rain, the driver, the honest mistake, but Victoria cut her off. Victoria's tone changed. Became sharper. She mentioned spending the morning in Samuel Hutchinson's private office. Said the timing was interesting. Very interesting. Naomi tried again to explain that nothing had happened, but Victoria wasn't interested in explanations. Victoria described a relationship with Samuel. Several months of closeness. Very close. Then mentioned how his assistant had cancelled their lunch meeting, citing an emergency. An emergency that apparently involved a woman in designer clothes he'd personally selected. The emerald blouse suddenly felt too tight. Naomi insisted it was innocent. That Samuel was just being kind. That dinner was simply a thank you. Victoria's laugh was brittle. Sharp enough to cut. She explained that Samuel didn't do anything without a reason. Certainly didn't buy women clothes, rearrange their business meetings, and make dinner reservations unless he wanted something specific. Naomi asked what that meant. Asked why Victoria was telling her this. Victoria's voice went quiet. Almost gentle. She said she actually liked Naomi's work, had seen her portfolio. Said it was exceptional. Then added that she'd hate to see Naomi become another name on Samuel Hutchinson's very long list of women who thought they were special. The call ended. Naomi sat in her car, hands trembling on the steering wheel. She should cancel dinner. Should send a polite text thanking him for his help and leave it at that. But part of her, the part that had seen something real in his eyes when he smiled, wanted to believe Victoria was wrong. Her phone buzzed. Samuel congratulating her on the contract. Saying he knew she'd get it. How did he already know? Another message. Thomas had called him. Was impressed. She should be proud. Naomi thanked him for the advice. Admitted she couldn't have done it without him. His response came quickly. She absolutely could have. She just needed to believe it. Then he asked if she was still good for tonight. She stared at the message. Thought about Victoria's warning. Thought about the way Samuel had looked at her. Thought about $60,000 and designer clothes and how none of this felt quite real. She asked if she could ask him something. He told her anything. She asked why he'd really helped her today. The typing indicator appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. He asked if he could answer that at dinner. Red flag. That was definitely a red flag. She typed his name. Just his name. A question in 6 letters. His response was longer this time. He said he liked her. That was the truth. He'd seen her standing in the rain, looking determined and terrified and absolutely unwilling to quit, and he'd wanted to know her. Wanted to help. Wanted to see what would happen if someone just gave her the space to be as good as she clearly was. Then he acknowledged that if that made him calculating, fine. But it was honest. Naomi's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed it. Victoria Chen had called her. The typing indicator disappeared for a full minute. When it returned, Samuel asked what Victoria had said. Naomi told him. About the reasons. About not being special. About the very long list. Samuel's response came slower this time. He explained that he and Victoria had dated casually 2 years ago. Ended it mutually. She'd been persistent about rekindling things he had no interest in rekindling. Then he admitted Victoria wasn't entirely wrong. He didn't do spontaneous. He was calculated. And he absolutely had a reason for helping Naomi. Her heart sank. His next message appeared before she could respond. The reason was that he hadn't been able to stop thinking about her since she got out of that car looking furious and vulnerable and like she was ready to fight him despite being 5'6" and soaking wet. The reason was that she was the first person in years who didn't know who he was and didn't want anything from him. The reason was that he was 37 years old and he'd dated dozens of women who looked perfect on paper and felt like nothing, and then she showed up by accident and suddenly he was rearranging his entire day just to spend 90 more minutes in the same room. So yes. He had a reason. The reason was her. Naomi read the message 3 times. This was crazy. This was moving too fast. This was a billionaire she'd known for 6 hours. She typed back. Told him she was scared. He asked if she was scared of him. She explained it wasn't him. It was this. How fast it felt. The fact that he could make phone calls and change her entire life and she didn't even know his middle name. His response made her chest tight. James. Samuel James Hutchinson. He was allergic to shellfish. Ran every morning at 6. Hadn't been in a real relationship in 4 years because he was terrible at letting people close. And he was scared too. Naomi asked what he was scared of. That she'd have dinner with him and realize he was just a workaholic with expensive suits and trust issues who didn't know how to do this. She asked what this meant. Feel something real. Naomi sat in her car, tears burning behind her eyes for reasons she couldn't fully name. She asked if 8 o'clock still worked. He said he'd pick her up. And before she could argue, he explained it wasn't about control. It was about getting to spend an extra 20 minutes with her. She told him he was very good at this. He asked at what? Saying exactly the right thing. His response was immediate. Only when he meant it. She gave him her address. Spent the rest of the afternoon alternating between excitement and terror. By 7:30, she'd changed outfits 4 times. By 7:45, Maya had called twice demanding details. By 7:55, Naomi was wearing a black dress that walked the line between elegant and devastating, and her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The doorbell rang at exactly 8 o'clock. Samuel stood in her doorway in a dark suit, no tie, looking unfairly good. His eyes traveled over her slowly. Took their time. When they met hers again, something in his expression had shifted. He told her she was going to ruin him. She pointed out she hadn't even said hello yet. He acknowledged that. Said he knew. But he could already tell tonight was going to change everything. He offered his hand. Naomi took it. And wondered if he was right. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. The restaurant was everything Naomi expected and nothing she was prepared for. Bacchanalia occupied a converted industrial space in West Midtown. Exposed brick. Soft lighting. The kind of quiet elegance that came with a 3-month waiting list and a prix-fixe menu that cost more than her monthly grocery budget. Samuel's hand rested at the small of her back as they walked in. Light. Barely there. But she felt it like a brand. The host recognized him immediately. Didn't need to check the reservation. Just guided them to a corner table, private, intimate, positioned so they could see the entire restaurant but no one could easily see them. Samuel pulled out her chair. Waited until she was seated before taking his own. A server appeared with water. Wine. Asked if they wanted to see the menu or trust the chef. Samuel looked at Naomi. Let her choose. She chose trust. The server disappeared. And suddenly it was just the two of them, soft jazz playing somewhere in the background, and nothing to hide behind. Samuel leaned back in his chair. Studied her face like he was memorizing it. She asked what he was looking at. He said he was trying to figure out how someone he'd known for less than 12 hours could make him feel like he'd been waiting his whole life. Naomi's breath caught. She told him that was a dangerous thing to say on a first date. He asked why. Because it made her want to believe him. Samuel's expression went serious. He said good. Because every word was true. The first course arrived. Something delicate and beautiful that Naomi barely tasted. They talked. About everything. About nothing. Samuel told her about growing up in Charleston. Old money family. Expectations that felt like chains. A father who measured success in acquisitions and a mother who measured it in social standing. He built Hutchinson Capital partly to prove he could, partly to escape. Naomi told him about growing up in Atlanta. Middle-class neighborhood. A father who'd worked 2 jobs to keep them comfortable and a mother, she called her Ma, who'd taught her that asking for help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Her sister Maya was a nurse. Practical. Grounded. Everything Naomi sometimes wished she could be. Samuel asked why she'd started her business. Naomi's fingers traced the stem of her wine glass. She explained about 2021. About her father getting sick. About watching him deteriorate while medical bills piled up and her mother aged 10 years in 6 months. About the funeral she'd planned, beautiful, meaningful, exactly what he would have wanted, and realizing that creating moments that mattered was the only thing that made sense anymore. Samuel reached across the table. Covered her hand with his. He didn't say he was sorry. Didn't offer empty platitudes. He just held her hand and understood. The second course came and went. Naomi asked about the betrayal. The one from 2019 that had made him build his company alone. Samuel's jaw tightened. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he told her about Marcus. His business partner. His best friend since college. They'd built their first company together. 50-50 split. Brothers in everything but blood. Until Samuel discovered Marcus had been skimming. For years. Millions of dollars hidden in offshore accounts while Samuel worked 100-hour weeks believing they were building something together. The legal battle had been ugly. Public. Samuel won, but the victory felt hollow. He'd lost his best friend. Lost his ability to trust. Lost the part of himself that believed in partnership. Naomi asked if that's why he'd been alone for 4 years. Samuel's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. He said it was easier. Safer. Control meant no one could betray him. She asked if that's what he wanted. Control and safety. He looked at her for a long time. Said he'd thought so. Until this morning. The main course arrived. Neither of them touched it immediately. Naomi asked what changed. Samuel said she did. Said watching her stand in his office, dripping wet and determined, refusing to accept help until she had no choice, and even then doing it with dignity, made him realize he'd been half alive for 4 years. He said he didn't want safe anymore. He wanted real. Naomi's heart hammered against her ribs. She told him this was crazy. They barely knew each other. He agreed. Said it was completely insane. Then asked if that changed how she felt. She admitted it didn't. Samuel's eyes went dark. Intense. He said good. Because he was falling for her, and he needed to know he wasn't alone in this. Naomi opened her mouth to respond. Her phone buzzed. Loud. Insistent. She apologized. Reached for it to silence it. Saw Maya's name. 7 missed calls. Her stomach dropped. She looked at Samuel. Said she had to take this. He nodded immediately. Concern replacing everything else. Naomi answered. Maya's voice came through shaky. Scared. Their mother had collapsed. Ambulance. Hospital. Come now. The phone nearly slipped from Naomi's hands. Samuel was already standing. Already signaling for the check. Already moving into action. She tried to form words. Tried to explain. He told her not to. Asked which hospital. She told him. Grady Memorial. He took her hand. Guided her out. The valet already had his car waiting, a sleek black Audi that appeared the moment they stepped outside. Samuel drove. Fast but controlled. One hand on the wheel. The other holding hers. Naomi couldn't breathe properly. Couldn't think. Ma had been fine. Completely fine. She'd talked to her yesterday. She'd been laughing. Making plans for Sunday dinner. Samuel's thumb traced patterns on her palm. Grounding her. He told her to breathe. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. She followed his voice. Let it anchor her. They reached the hospital in 12 minutes. Samuel pulled up to the emergency entrance. Told her to go. He'd park and find her. Naomi ran. Maya was in the waiting room. Tears streaming down her face. She saw Naomi and collapsed into her arms. Their mother had a stroke. Severe. They were running tests. Trying to stabilize her. It didn't look good. Naomi's world tilted. She sank into a plastic chair that smelled like disinfectant and fear. Maya sat beside her. Held her hand. Asked who the man was who dropped her off. Naomi couldn't find words to explain Samuel. Couldn't explain anything. Hours passed. Tests. Waiting. Doctors with careful expressions and cautious words. Ma was stable. Critical but stable. The next 48 hours would tell them everything. Naomi wanted to see her. Needed to see her. They let her in for 5 minutes. No more. Ma looked small. Fragile. Hooked up to machines that beeped and whirred. Her beautiful face slack on one side. Naomi held her hand. The same hand that had braided her hair. Made her breakfast. Held her when her father died. She whispered that she loved her. That she needed her. That she couldn't do this without her. Maya Sifinger twitched. Barely. But enough. A nurse told her time was up. Naomi stumbled back to the waiting room. Samuel was there. He'd been there the entire time. 4 hours. Sitting in an uncomfortable plastic chair in his expensive suit, waiting. When he saw her face, he stood. Naomi walked into his arms and broke. She sobbed against his chest. Great heaving gasps that she couldn't control. For years of holding everything together, the business, the grief, the fear, the constant grinding pressure, came pouring out. Samuel held her. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't offer empty promises. Just held her while she shattered. Maya approached. Introduced herself. Thanked Samuel for staying. He said there was nowhere else he'd be. Maya's expression shifted. She looked at Naomi. Then at Samuel. Then back at Naomi with questions in her eyes that would have to wait. A doctor appeared. More information. More tests needed. More waiting. Samuel asked if they needed anything. Coffee. Food. Anything at all. Maya said coffee would be good. He left to find some. Maya immediately turned to Naomi. Asked who he was. Really? Naomi tried to explain. The Uber. The office. The contract. The dinner that had barely started. Maya's eyes widened. She asked if Naomi meant Samuel Hutchinson. The billionaire. The one who'd been on the cover of Atlanta Business Chronicle last month. Naomi nodded. Maya asked what he was doing here. Naomi said she didn't know. That none of this made sense. That she'd known him for 12 hours and he was sitting in a hospital waiting room like he belonged there. Maya asked how Naomi felt about him. Naomi said she was terrified. Because it felt real. Because she was falling. Because she had no idea if she could trust it. Maya squeezed her hand. Said Ma always told them that the right person shows up when you need them most. Naomi's eyes burned. Samuel returned with coffee. 3 cups. He'd remembered Maya's preference from context clues. Cream, no sugar. Maya took the cup. Studied Samuel with the protective intensity only a sister could manage. She asked if he planned to stick around. Samuel looked at Naomi. Said as long as she'd let him. Maya nodded slowly. Said good. Because her sister deserved someone who stayed. The night dragged on. Tests. Updates. Cautious optimism that felt too fragile to trust. Samuel stayed. Through every update. Every tear. Every moment of hope and despair. At 3 in the morning, a doctor finally said Ma was stable. Really stable. The next 48 hours were still critical, but she was fighting. Naomi felt something in her chest loosen. Samuel drove them home. Maya first. Then Naomi. He walked her to her door. Gentle. Careful. Like she might break. She turned to thank him. To say something adequate for what he'd done. He stopped her. Said she didn't need to thank him. Said tonight was supposed to be about getting to know each other, and they had. Just not the way either of them expected. Naomi asked why he stayed. Samuel cupped her face. Thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were still falling. He said because this was real. Because she was real. Because 4 hours in a hospital waiting room told him more about what he wanted than 4 years of carefully controlled dates ever had. He wanted her. All of her. The strength and the breaking. The success and the fear. Everything. Naomi kissed him. Soft. Desperate. Grateful. Terrified. He kissed her back like she was precious. Like she mattered. Like he meant every word. When they pulled apart, he told her to get some sleep. He'd check in tomorrow. She nodded. Watched him leave. And realized she was completely, terrifyingly in love with Samuel Hutchinson. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. 3 weeks later, Ma came home. Not fully recovered. The stroke had left her right side weak. Speech therapy. Physical therapy. A long road ahead. But alive. Fighting. More determined than Naomi had ever seen her. Samuel had been there for all of it. Not hovering. Not intrusive. Just present. He'd arranged for the best neurologist in Atlanta to consult on Ma's case. Had physical therapy equipment delivered to the house. Made sure Maya didn't have to choose between work shifts and being at the hospital. When Naomi tried to thank him, tried to ask what all of this cost, he'd kissed her quiet and said some things weren't about money. Now, on a Saturday morning in early October, Naomi sat in her mother's living room watching Ma work through exercises with her therapist. Samuel had texted an hour ago. Asked if she was free this afternoon. Said he had something to show her. She'd said yes without hesitation. That should have scared her. How easy it had become to say yes to him. How quickly he'd woven himself into her life. But 3 weeks of watching him show up, consistently, genuinely, without asking for anything in return, had quieted most of her fears. Not all of them. But most. Ma finished her session. The therapist left. Maya was at work. It was just the two of them. Ma gestured to the chair beside her. Patted it. Her movements were slower now, more deliberate, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Naomi sat. Ma asked about Samuel. Her speech was still slightly slurred, but getting clearer every day. Naomi said he was good. They were good. Ma gave her a look. The one that said she wasn't buying surface answers. Naomi sighed. Admitted she was scared. That things were moving fast. That she didn't know if she could trust feeling this much this quickly. Ma reached for her hand. Squeezed it with the strength she'd regained. She said that Naomi's father had proposed after 6 weeks. Everyone said it was too fast. Too reckless. Too much. They'd had 32 years together. Not nearly enough, but more than most people got in a lifetime. Ma's eyes filled. She said that love didn't wait for permission. Didn't follow timelines. It just was. She asked if Samuel made Naomi happy. Naomi nodded. Said he did. More than she'd thought possible. Ma said then that was all that mattered. Naomi's phone buzzed. Samuel was outside. She kissed Ma's forehead. Promised to be back for dinner. Ma told her to take her time. Said some things were worth being late for. Samuel's car was parked at the curb. He leaned against it, dressed casually, jeans, a white button-down, sleeves rolled to his elbows. The October sun caught his dark hair, and something in Naomi's chest went warm. He straightened when he saw her. Smiled that small smile that was just for her. She walked into his arms. Breathed him in. Let herself have this. He asked how Ma was doing. Naomi said better. Stronger every day. Good, he said. Then asked if she was ready. She asked where they were going. He said it was a surprise. Asked her to trust him. She did. That was the terrifying part. They drove north. Out of the city. Through suburbs that gave way to rural roads lined with trees exploding in fall colors. Naomi asked again where they were going. Samuel just smiled. Said patience. 40 minutes later, they turned down a private road. Gravel crunching under the tires. Trees forming a canopy overhead. Then the trees opened up. A house. No, a home. Sprawling but not ostentatious. Modern lines softened by natural wood and stone. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a small lake that reflected the autumn sky. Samuel parked. Came around to open her door. Naomi stepped out slowly. Stared. She asked what this was. He said it was a possibility. Then took her hand and led her inside. The interior was empty. Unfurnished. But the bones were beautiful. Open floor plan. Chef's kitchen with an island big enough for family dinners. Living room with a fireplace and those incredible windows. A primary suite with a bathroom that looked like a spa. But it was the smaller rooms that caught Naomi's attention. One set up as an office. Windows facing the lake. Built-in bookshelves. Another that could be a guest room. Or a nursery. And a third, larger, with its own entrance, that had clearly been designed as an in-law suite. She turned to Samuel. Heart pounding. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. She asked what this was. Really? Samuel took a breath. Stepped closer. He said he'd bought this property 2 years ago. Had the house designed. Then never built it because he couldn't imagine who he'd share it with. Until 3 weeks ago. Until a woman stumbled into his car by accident and made him want things he'd stopped believing in. Naomi's throat went tight. Samuel continued. Said he knew it was fast. Knew she had every reason to be cautious. But he'd spent 4 years being careful, and careful had left him alone. He didn't want to be alone anymore. He wanted her. Wanted this. Wanted to build something real with someone who made him believe in partnership again. The in-law suite was for Ma. If she wanted it. When she was ready. Maya too. There was space for family because Naomi's family was part of who she was, and he wanted all of it. Naomi's eyes burned. She asked what he was saying. Samuel reached into his pocket. Pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath stopped. He opened it. A ring. Simple. Elegant. A single diamond that caught the light and threw rainbows. He said he was saying that he loved her. That he'd loved her since she stood in his office looking fierce and vulnerable and refusing to be less than she was worth. He was saying that 3 weeks felt like nothing and everything. That he'd never been more certain of anything in his life. He was saying, marry me. Build this life with me. Let me spend the next 50 years proving that sometimes the best things happen by accident. Naomi's tears spilled over. She asked if he was sure. If he really knew what he was asking. Samuel cupped her face. Said he'd never been more sure of anything. She asked what about her business. Her commitments. Her mother's recovery. He said they'd figure it out. Together. That's what partnership meant. She asked what about his trust issues. His need for control. He said loving her was teaching him to let go. To trust. To believe that some people stayed. Naomi laughed through her tears. Said he was making it very hard to think clearly. Samuel smiled. Said good. Because he didn't want her thinking. He wanted her feeling. And what did she feel? Naomi looked at him. This man who'd shown up by accident and stayed on purpose. Who'd sat in a hospital waiting room for hours without being asked. Who'd thought about her mother, her sister, her whole life when designing a house he wanted to share. Who looked at her like she was the answer to questions he'd been asking his whole life. She said yes. Samuel's expression transformed. Relief. Joy. Something so pure it took her breath away. He slipped the ring on her finger. Perfect fit. Like everything else about them. Then he kissed her. Slow. Deep. A promise and a beginning. When they pulled apart, Naomi was laughing. Crying. Both. She said they were crazy. That everyone would say they were moving too fast. Samuel said let them. He'd waited 37 years to feel this. He wasn't wasting another minute. Naomi agreed. Said she loved him. Had loved him since he held her while she broke and didn't try to fix her, just let her be broken. Samuel pulled her close. Said he loved her too. All of her. The strong and the scared. The successful and the struggling. Everything. They stood in the empty house that wouldn't be empty much longer, holding each other while the October sun poured through the windows. Naomi asked when he wanted to do this. The wedding. Samuel said whenever she wanted. Big. Small. Tomorrow. Next year. He didn't care as long as it ended with her being his wife. She said soon. She wanted soon. He smiled against her hair. Said soon worked for him. Her phone buzzed. Maya. Asking where she was. Ma wanted to know when she'd be home for dinner. Naomi looked at Samuel. Asked if he wanted to come to dinner. Help her tell them. He said there was nowhere else he'd rather be. They locked up the house. Drove back to the city. Naomi twisted the ring on her finger. Caught Samuel watching her. She asked what he was thinking. He said he was thinking about the Uber she'd tried to call that rainy afternoon. How it had cancelled. How his assistant had sent the car to the wrong entrance. How a dozen small accidents had aligned perfectly to put her in his life. He was thinking that maybe some things were meant to be. Naomi smiled. Said she used to think everything had to be planned. Controlled. Perfect. Then she'd gotten into the wrong car and found everything she'd been looking for. Samuel lifted her hand. Kissed her ring finger. Said best wrong car ever. 6 months later. The house by the lake was finished. Ma had moved into the in-law suite 3 weeks ago. Her mobility was improving daily. She'd claimed the kitchen, said Samuel's fancy appliances were wasted on people who didn't know how to cook properly. Samuel hadn't argued. Just bought her the exact pots and pans she requested. Maya visited every weekend. Had her own room. Brought whoever she was dating, which changed frequently enough that Naomi had stopped trying to keep track. Naomi's business had exploded. The Castellan event had been featured in 3 major publications. Her client list had tripled. She'd hired 2 assistants and was considering a third. She worked from the office with the lake view. Samuel had his own office on the opposite side of the house. They met in the kitchen for lunch. Took walks by the water in the evenings. It was simple. Easy. Right. The wedding had been small. Just family and close friends. Piedmont Park at sunset. Naomi in a simple white dress that made Samuel's eyes go dark. Samuel in a suit that made Naomi forget her own vows halfway through. Ma had cried. Maya had cried. Even Samuel had gotten suspiciously misty-eyed. Now, on a Saturday morning in late April, Naomi stood in the kitchen watching her husband, still a word that made her smile, make pancakes with Ma. He was terrible at it. Ma was critiquing every flip. He was laughing. Accepting correction. Trying again. Naomi's hand drifted to her stomach. Still flat. But not for long. She hadn't told him yet. Wanted to wait for the right moment. Samuel looked up. Caught her expression. Crossed the kitchen in 3 strides. Asked what she was thinking about. She said she was thinking about wrong cars and right people and how the best things in life happened when you stop trying to control everything. He kissed her forehead. Said he was thinking the same thing. Ma announced that the pancakes were ready. Barely acceptable, but ready. Samuel rolled his eyes. Naomi laughed. They sat down to breakfast. Family. Love. Home. Everything she'd never known she was looking for. All because she'd tried to call an Uber on a rainy afternoon in June. And ended up in the arms of the man who'd been waiting for her all along. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next.